What's going on, traders, and welcome back to another YouTube video. So I was looking at EURUSD and I said, let me just put out a video for you guys out there because it has hit into a zone that I have been waiting for. And I've got a pretty clear plan of what I want to do next. So stick around and let's break that down. But before I do that, let me throw in my disclaimer. Remember, I'm not licensed nor qualified to offer financial, investment, or trading advice, right? Everything I speak about on these videos is purely my own opinion. I do not suggest trading live capital. If you do it with cash that you are willing to lose, because you could lose your entire investment, right? It's quite risky out here. So let's get straight into it. Now, what we need to understand about Euro USD is overall, we did have some rather bullish moves to the upside, and I am referring to the weekly chart, right? So we did have a very strong break of structure and another continuation to the upside. And this was very long ago, and it might seem like, it doesn't matter right now, but it does matter in terms of the overall narrative of what's happening on a long term, right? We have to acknowledge the fact that this pull back into here. Why is my line wide? We have to acknowledge that this pullback into here. In fact, let me actually use this because it's better. All right, so this pullback into here, we have to acknowledge that it's a retest of something that happened in this push to the upside in here, right? So overall, if we were looking to participate in any buys overall, we would look at price getting back into here and at above this area here, right? So this would be a major area that price would interact with as it's coming away from here. As we can see pretty much a mirror of this over here, right? So what did we see after we saw this big impulse to the upside? We saw this bit of consolidated pullback into this area, and then price reacted, right? Now we're getting that same pattern again. So we've got a break, pullback, another break, and we're getting this bit of a consolidated pullback into there. And now I'm looking to see if we can see an interaction with this level to see price going long again. So overall, looking at the weekly time frame, I do have an overall long bias on the euro to the dollar, right? So we can see here now, as we look into this structure, we can see that we had a very strong push away from here. We had a bit of a pullback and a minor stall in price there, and then we had a continuation break to the upside, right? What happened in this instance is we formed a bit of a demand zone, right? Whoa, what is that? Okay, cool. So we formed a bit of a demand zone in this area. So that's what I am looking at right now, because when we had this rally after this base, we had a rally that then took out this market structure, all this market structure over here was broken by this rally, right? So this was a really strong push to the upside. So what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at price interacting with this area. Now, this is just a refined demand zone. So I basically refined this to something on the lower time frame that I'm looking at. And we can see that price is already reacting from that area. So when we look at the weekly time frame, we must understand that the very last push to the downside did what? It also broke this low and broke this low, right? So inside of this overall bullish I would say overall major bullish trend, we have this minor bearish trend that is progressing right now. Why? Because it's pulling back, right? So it will create a lower time frame bearish trend, and we want to see a change of that bearish trend on the lower time frame to a bullish trend before we want to participate in any buys to the upside. So when I look at this, I can see that we had this break of structures here, right? This one means more to me than this one. Why? Because this was the last low that broke structure to the upside. This is a higher low, but it did not necessarily break structure. So there wasn't necessarily any bullish, any significant bullish momentum in this push as there was here when price breaks below this, right? Because if there's significant bullish momentum in here, when price breaks below this, it's taking out significant buyers, right? So looking at that, what I'm basically looking at right now is prices short-term oversold on the weekly time frame. We want to see that correct itself to a better price and then either continue to the downside, right? Or retest something in here and continue back to the upside. Whatever happens next does not matter. We must understand that price is oversold. It's broken structure to the downside. It's creating a lower low. After a lower low, we'd expect to see a lower high or a break of the lower high and a continuation to the upside. Whatever happens, we do know that price needs to pull back. And this is the best scenarios that I like to be in. And that is why I've waited for price to get to this area. This is the best scenarios that I like to be in, because regardless of whether price is going to move down or it's going to move up, it's going to pull back, right? It has to give us a bullish move. So if we're looking at price maybe going down to form a lower low, then regardless of whether it's going to continue higher or lower, it's going to push down to make that lower low. And that is what I like to do. And that is why it is quite important to understand your market structure as well. So let's drop down from the weekly time frame and let's have a look at the 4-hour time frame. So as I said, I want to see a change of that bearish momentum to bullish momentum before I can say, okay, I want to start participating in buys to the upside. So when we look at the weekly time frame now, what are we looking at on the weekly time frame? We're looking at this last push to the upside and this pullback, right? So all the way down to here, we want to look inside of this last push to the downside on the 4-hour time frame, and we want to see now a transition of this bearish trend over to a bullish trend. So what do we see right now? We see that price did create some equal highs in here, then went and took out that liquidity. We can see a very strong push to the downside in here, pull back, it creating some highs in here. Price broke lower. After breaking that low, it came back and retested something significant in there and then broke structure. So for me, I would be focused as this is the first break of structure, pull back, second break of structure in here to the downside. We've now got price inside of this weekly demand zone that you can see down in here. So that's the weekly demand zone that we're looking at. We can see that we're still in a pretty strong bearish trend, right? The last lower high would be what I've got marked here as H4, right? The last lower low was here, lower high, and then it broke structure to the downside. So we're still inside of this overall bearish swing. We haven't created a low in this scenario yet. I would wait to see if price creates a low in this area here, and then should it create a low in this area, perhaps we can drop down to an even lower time frame and look to see that change in trend on that lower time frame. So what do I mean? So if I say, for instance, price has created this low here, I would then drop down to the 30-minute time frame, and I want to see a change of this trend, right? So then what would I want to see? This would be the last lower high. I would want to see price break above this lower high and perhaps pull back into something in there, right? And then I would want to go long from there. Basically, that's more or less what my plan is, right? So if we look at this 4-hour time frame, it's very important for me. I believe that for this week, the target is going to be to get above this high here, right? That's why I have an X here, right? I believe that the target for this week is going to be to get above this high. Even if we don't get above this high, it will be to get very close into the high of that last candle, right? So that's my belief. So when I look at Euro USD for this week, or going forward until we see price perhaps breaking through the zone and continuing lower, going forward, I will be looking to see price get back into that high. Right, and that's it. That's all I wanted to basically speak about on this video. Hopefully it was quite informative. If there's anything else you want us to speak about, drop it down in the comments. But until next time, it has been a pleasure as always to share with you guys, and I'm wishing you a blessed and profitable continued trading week, or rest of the trading week, and I'm wishing you a blessed weekend as well, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next video.